A switch in the market from US source to Brazilian source of soybeans, and I'm going to ask Jerry Gidel if the market will continue to slide. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, this week we had a significant fall in all commodity markets, and do you think that the export market was the main factor here?
Oh, I think exports were definitely part of it here with the the lack of actually the data here for last week that was reported just today because we had a 1 day delay on our export updates because of the president's holiday, and that but a 2 million export sales number for soybeans definitely is not a good one to have happen. Corn was running the 42 to 48 sales level progress for the last month or so, and then we came in with a 32 or 35 million number. Wheat, I think had 8 million, but corn and soybeans, the lack of that, and also to some extent, the activity this week, the only sale we had announced was a 122,000 ton sale of sorghum to China, which we haven't seen in quite some time. So I guess they needed to put together some molasses for the over there. So that's the. I can't believe that they can't afford corn over there. So back in the day, back in 17, 18, 19, when we were having all the you export taxes and things like that on China stuff, they were buying a lot of sorghum as an alternative because it wasn't officially on the tax level. But the twist of it is right now is that we have these prices have slipped in, and we had 20 cents in the corn this week. I think the beans were slipped down. Geez, I think that was about 60 or 70 cents on that one in just 1 week, and we actually ended up coming down to some very historical levels in nearby prices here on soybeans, particularly this week. We took out last May 30th week of $11.45, and that added to the last couple days of weakness that we had in these prices on the beans and took them down to well, I guess officially here we're about 13 to 15 cents below there, and we are down in some very oversold situations in that in the beans. In the corn, another situation there. Uh, we took it down and closed below $4 tonight. Not a very psychologically a kind of a definite negative, but the problem is that we've already had everybody and his dog selling this stuff, so I have a hard time kind of looking at this thing just on the prices here because we've had a lot of uncertainty here in South America. I think there's still a lot of issues in Brazil about what kind of bean crop they're going to ultimately have. We didn't get any particular update from the agri consultant update this week that was down 1.5 million down to 152.3, I think it was on that one. But at the on the soybeans from there. And the corn, we're a long ways away from figuring out what kind of corn crop. I think the progress on harvest, or excuse me, on plantings on corn though, is moving along. I'm not sure it's at 60% yet, but it's moving along. And they really do need to get a lot of their corn plantings in Brazil done before the 1st of March because of the seasonality of their weather down there. Things get very, very tenuous on what kind of moisture and heat will occur by the 1st of May. If it starts having pollination and things like that happening, that could be a big significance. But right now it's not in that stage, and so the market's saying, why me worry?
Yes, and one of the things that pop up in everybody that follow these markets is that when this slide will stop. I don't think this slide will go much further because everything we are hearing, even from the mainstream institutions like Goldman Sachs, are saying that most commodities like crude oil or even gold will go higher.
I tend to agree with this general idea that we are down at some rock bottom prices here, primarily because uh, there's not too many other sellers that's logically going to come into this market here at this point. The basic statement is that we're oversold, and I think that's the case. And also, as I just mentioned, I think there's enough other issues out here that once we can get some stability in this thing, and then all of a sudden we start to find some of these uncertainties that I think still look like they could easily be significant here in South America. Um, and that in the both corn and soybeans. Now, the one thing I'd have to say that happened here uh, overnight, and Argentina had that blistering heat, and then they had one little respite here 14 days ago, some rains. Well, they hadn't had much rain up until in the major producing areas of Cordoba, Santa Fe, and Buenos Aires, but there was a very good amount of rain that hit Cordoba last night in the 1 to 2 inch amounts, or maybe a little more in some places. So that didn't help us in today's performance on beans on Friday and that. But there was, as I said, not a lot of rain in the other two or three provinces that are producers of soybeans. So that was one of the added kind of kick me in the shin situation here today, that added to the lack of support coming into the soybeans here right after the bell.
Well, but we are still pretty much far away from the end of the Argentinian harvest.
Oh,
But we were speaking of the year that the Brazilian crop, we think that hardly will get over 150 million metric tons.
I think that's a good assumption at this point. It could even be a number in the 145, 147 range. And to some extent, that's 15 million from where we started here, 162, 163 million from there. And to some extent, it's back to my kind of talks last week when we were dealing with the USDA's expectations for the 2024 crops and the plantings here in the U.S. We weren't even getting those kind of 3 million, 3.5 million that the that the USDA was projecting that from the trade be at that point, and part of it's because the fact that beans and corn were on the defensive, and so the old game of, well, I'll plant the loan because that loan's going to be there. We're down at loan now. There was no extra room in that one after this week's slid of 25, 30 cents. And on the soybean side, we lost 60 or 70 cents right down to that important level we talked about here, like that. Uh, from that standpoint, the twist of it too in that corn is the fact that getting down to $4, we haven't been to that low since until November of 2020. So that is a long ways back. So we're back in whatever happened to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That's way back there. We went way past that on the setback.
Yeah, so next week the difference will be, I guess, that we will have a longer week at least for the US market.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't mean we get 5 days of pounding instead of four, but I think that exactly right that we're also be getting into the 1st of March by this time next week. From there, I think the USDA's updates for the will be March 8th. So I think that would end up put us another week out after the next Friday for the USDA's update. From there, it's going, at this point, the weather situation be part of it. I think also just the what type of reports we start to get as we get into some of these other areas other than Mato Grosso, I think is going to be quite important in Brazil. Like you say, the harvest in Argentina is going to be a little further off here at this point. There's some crops are starting to be harvested on the soybeans, but it's very modest comparison to probably here. So another month or 6 weeks away, mid to late March is usually when uh, those type of earlier first crop beans that were planted before wheat down there. Because a lot of soybeans, by the way, in Argentina, are second crop soybeans planted in the wheat ground after it's harvested. So that always makes things kind of interesting in the world of soybean yields on a longer term basis. But the activity here we'll be watching, as you said, South American situations, and also uh, the situation on the wheat market around the world is kind of interesting. We had a similar situation here, taking wheat down below $6, things like that. But one of the kind of interesting twists here is that Europe's major wheat producer there, France, their crop conditions here are about as low as they were 4 years ago, at around 68% good and excellent. So uh, the world of wheat and what's going on there, it's always helpful if you can get some concerns there and some issues. Uh, One of the interesting twists here at the last few days has been that we've had this whole ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Poland about shipping things through Poland and things of that nature. Well, in the last few days, or maybe earlier this week, the Polish protesters figured out that they could open the bottom of the hopper carts and spill the grain out on the train tracks. So they did that one day, and then they came back a couple more days later and did the same thing. So uh, unfortunately, it's a nice, fun event, but the biggest problem on it is that the stuff in the rail car that's going to the Baltic is not impacting their prices in Poland. But unfortunately, they're looking at low prices and they have to blame somebody. So they're looking at the Ukrainians. But that being said, the, the misinformation that goes around as to what's really the cause of this uh, depressing prices around the world, everybody wants to blame somebody, and it's not always the people in your backyard that you point to. You point to somebody else. So, but we'll see what next week brings. I'm kind of anticipating, hopefully, a little stability early in the week, and we can find some excitement in the world conditions to get ourselves going sideways here for 10 days to 2 weeks before the USDA report.
All right, we'll keep tracking. Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care, sir. Have a good weekend.